G'day viewers. In this episode we're going to talk about risk. Firstly, what is risk? Secondly, can we estimate risk? Thirdly, can we measure risk? And lastly, estimating risk and actually measuring it are two different things. So how can we differentiate between them? Okay, let's begin our journey by defining what risk is. Risk involves three fundamental characteristics. Number one, risk speaks to the possibility of something bad happening. Number two, risk relates to the uncertainty associated with activities. Number three, risk is an assessment of the probability of failure. Now that we have broadly defined risk, let's ask the question, what is cyber risk? Well, cyber risk can be separated into cyber functional threats and cyber security threats. Cyber functional threats occupy the space inside the firewall. Cyber security threats occupy the space outside the firewall. Cybersecurity threats are high profile and get almost all of the public and corporate attention, and there are countless third-party consultancies ready to take your money by preying on your fears. However, cyber functional threats are far less publicised or considered by corporate leadership. So, if cybersecurity threats are given substantially more corporate attention over cyber functional threats, then it stands to reason that the probability of cybersecurity threats manifesting as real events is significantly greater than the probability of cyber functional threats manifesting as real events, right? Well, let's take a closer look at this question. That is, where is most of your cyber risk? Let's begin by considering a simple theoretical cybersecurity scenario. On any arbitrary computer system, 65,536 user datagram protocol ports exist, including the reserved port 0. An equal number of transmission control protocol ports exist, also with a reserved port 0. This means that there are 131,072 potential ways into your system. Therefore, there are 131,072 potential cybersecurity threats to your system from remotely located external actors. If all of these ports are disabled so that they are non-functional, what is your cyber risk? As it turns out, your cyber risk can be statistically measured to be just 0.17%. The obvious question now becomes, why isn't your cyber risk 0%? Well, a human being can physically access your system locally and execute undesirable activities. That is, a naughty developer can come along and sabotage your system, or possibly commit an act of espionage. The possibility of espionage should not be discounted, particularly in today's geopolitical climate. Okay, let's now consider a cyber functional scenario. As we mentioned previously, cyber functional threats originate from within your firewall, not outside your firewall, like cybersecurity threats do. An example of a cyber function being executed from within your firewall could be a system administrator creating a new user account, perhaps for a new employee whom just joined the company. Another example could be an existing employee generating a report for the leadership team. However, for our purposes, we shall consider the cyber functional threats associated with internet banking as a convenient example most viewers can relate to. It should also be noted that internet banking needs to be built and tested before it can be utilised by the public. Banks are no different to any other business. Just because they have plenty of wealth and don't have a cash flow problem doesn't mean that they spend money hand over fist or waste money. They are profit-driven, just like all businesses. This means that, like all large institutions, including governments and militaries, they don't and can't test every possible permutation and combination before they declare the solution fit for purpose and deploy it for commercial use. Well, if this is the case, what do? The answer to this question may sound shocking, but it's a reality of business. They take risk. So then, what does risk-based testing look like? Risk-based testing can take many forms, but a common test approach relates to test priority. Typically, test priority is broken down into four categories. These are, number 1, critical priority tests, number 2, high priority tests, number 3, moderate priority tests, and number 4, low priority tests. So then, how is risk-based testing combined with test prioritization and implemented? The manner in which many large organisations achieve this is by executing their critical, high and moderate priority tests whilst abandoning their low priority tests. This reduces project cost and accelerates delivery, but carries 2.57% cyber risk. Therefore, a medium to large scale organisation is carrying about 15 times more cyber risk inside their firewall as opposed to outside their firewall. That is 2.57% cyber risk compared to the 0.17% we saw on the previous slide. Let's now look at how these cyber risk measurements are actually executed. In order to measure cyber risk, we need to cross the street, just like the gentleman appearing on screen. When crossing a street, you don't assess the risk of doing so. You actually assess your confidence in doing so. You look left, you look right, you estimate your confidence that you can beat oncoming vehicles. You estimate your confidence that you won't slip on the ice, and you estimate your confidence that you can avoid any other hazards. Hence, the confidence analogy of crossing a street begs the obvious question: what is cyber confidence? In other words, cyber risk cannot be measured directly. It can only be measured indirectly. However, what we can measure directly is cyber confidence. Just like a person crossing a street, we make decisions based directly upon confidence, not risk. We are human, and it's in our nature to aim for success, not failure. Confidence is to success what risk is to failure, and this is precisely why we make all of our decisions on the basis of confidence, not risk. So then, can the relationship between cyber risk and cyber confidence be expressed mathematically? Yes. Fortunately it can, and it is an extremely simple equation. You can see on screen that a clear and unambiguous mathematical definition of cyber risk has been presented. What is important to note is that the cyber confidence is not predicted, it is directly measured, based upon actual tests which have been executed and passed. This means that a scientific standard of proof has been applied to the project outcome, not a subjective standard of proof. In a manner of speaking, we are diagnosing the project at the DNA level, not just upon the outwardly appearance of the patient. A significant benefit we achieve from this equation is a very precise mathematical definition of cyber risk. Hence, in the context of this equation, cyber risk is defined project specifically as undiscovered defects. This mathematical definition of cyber risk does not contradict previous slides because the cyber confidence upon which it is derived is project specific. In other words, because the cyber confidence is based upon the tests passed and the tests executed will vary from project to project, we have funneled our previously broad definition of cyber risk into a project-specific definition of cyber risk, which is what every business process owner loves to hear. That is, they love to hear how you are taking care of them specifically, not just applying a vanilla solution because it's convenient or more profitable for you to do so as a third-party service provider. Okay, let's now summarize what we have learned. There are three key takeaways coming out of this video presentation. Number one, approximately 15 times more cyber risk exists inside your firewall rather than outside of it. Number two, you must measure your cyber confidence before you can measure your cyber risk. Number three, cyber risk equals undiscovered defects, which equals the testing that you have not done. So, the important business message to absorb here is that undiscovered defects can be exploited by cyber criminals or unintentionally cause a catastrophic business outcome. Well, we hope you've enjoyed the show. Please feel free to reach out to us for more information.